No country on earth is more populous than China. But now it's facing its slowest population growth since the early 1960s. Over the past decade, mainland China's population did grow to 1.412 billion people. But the average annual growth is sluggish. And last year, 12 million babies were born, down from 14.65 million in 2019. With its ageing population, the birth rate slump and decline in the number of working-age people pose a threat to China's economic and social ambitions. So today, the government's policy of allowing only 2 children per family became 3. The original one-child policy was imposed in 1980 to reduce China's enormous population. Enforcement came in the form of rewards for those who complied and punishments for those who didn't.
They can force you abortion, they can destroy your house, they can fine you, and they can detain your parents, your husband.
By 2015, the policy was abandoned to reinvigorate population growth. Since then, though, the predicted baby boom has failed to materialise. And asking families to expand even further from now on may not either.
有条件可以多生，那像比方说年轻人要买房，这种压力本来就挺大的，然后又要考虑到教育成本什么，可能政策是一方面，实行我估计挺难的。
But if indeed the 3-child policy fails to catch on, will the threat of a looming demographic crisis be enough to force the Chinese government to finally relinquish control over women's bodies once and for all?
Well, I'm now joined by Professor Steve Sang, the director of the China Institute at the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London. Professor, why, in your view, didn't scrapping the original one-child policy not lead to a sustained upsurge in births?
Because the problem with the declining birth rate is now structural in China. Raising children have become extremely expensive, and the working environment is very unfriendly to working mother. So couples and young mothers or young women, married women, simply don't want to have more than one child if they could avoid it.
So raising the limit to 3 might make no difference equally?
The difference would be extremely marginal. When they lift the one-child policy in 2015, for 1 year, the birth rate did go up slightly, but then it sort of settled down onto the downward trajectory again. We may see a repeat of the same factor.
So shouldn't the government improve maternity policies? I know they've tried to do that in the past, but wouldn't that be a neater answer to this problem?
I think that definitely will help. I think if the Chinese government makes sure that women are properly treated in China and the working environment is conducive to young mothers, it will certainly help. But then there are other problems in terms of how expensive and how competitive it is in terms of raising children in China. That will also need to change.
But will the Chinese government ever change the control that they still appear to want to exert over women's bodies?
Well, I think the change from one-child policy to 2-child and now 3-child is a reflection of the mindset of the Communist Party of China, which is to control.
And that doesn't change.
They could have, that's not going to change. They could simply have lift all numbers of children that couples can have. They wouldn't even consider that.
And just very briefly, what is the global impact if population growth in China remains muted or even falls into decline?
I think the decline is to be expected. The Chinese economy may well slow down a bit, but the real issue is not the population drop in the short term, but the fact that Chinese working age people are not sufficiently educated to be of high productivity.